The viewing gallery of Siren Station was a marvel of galactic engineering. Its transparent wall, made of a material no human scientist could yet name, offered a panoramic view of the stars and the endless ballet of ships. Ambassador Li Jun stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression one of polite interest. Next to him, his aide, Kim Ariam, held a data slate close to her chest, her dark eyes missing nothing. Across from them, Ambassador Vale of the United Galactic Concordance gestured with a graceful four-fingered hand. His avian species, the Elshin, were elegant, with fine gray feathers and large, luminous eyes. His voice was a soft, melodic chime translated by the small device on June's lapel. As you can see, Vale chimed, "The traffic lanes are organized with perfect harmony. Efficiency and beauty are not mutually exclusive. This is the foundation of concordance philosophy." June gave a slow, respectful nod. "It is very impressive. The order is clear." His words were chosen with care. He had been a diplomat for 20 years, and he knew the value of understatement. Ariam's eyes, however, were not on the beautiful ships. They were fixed on a secondary tactical display hovering to the side of the main window. It showed a schematic of the Siren system, with tiny icons representing UGC patrol vessels. Their movements were precise, looping patterns. They darted like swift fish. There was no wasted motion, no lingering in one place. She noted the patterns, the reaction protocols listed in tiny glyphs beside each ship type. All emphasized speed, evasion, and targeted, low-yield energy weapons. It was a doctrine of finesse. "Your own vessels," Vale continued, leading them away from the view, "will, of course, be granted access to the peripheral lanes. For a species so new to the stars, your engineers have shown admirable determination in reverse engineering our basic propulsion models." The comment was not meant as an insult. June knew. To the Elshin and the rest of the Concordance, it was a simple statement of fact. Humanity had arrived late to the galactic party. They were the clever newcomers, good with software and adaptive biology, but physically fragile, their technology a patchwork of borrowed concepts. They were seen as quick learners, but not innovators. "Not a threat. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn," June replied, his tone even. They moved to the negotiation chamber, a circular room with a soft, bioluminescent glow. The talks had been ongoing for 3 standard days. The Concordance was offering access to a minor, isolated energy grid on the edge of their territory, a testing ground, really in exchange for full cultural and historical data archives from Earth. It was the standard integration treaty. The Concordance absorbed cultures, studied them, and gently guided them into the harmonious whole. Several other species had signed similar agreements. It was a fair deal by galactic standards. Ariam sat beside June, her data slate now connected to the chamber's main system. She projected the treaty terms. Article 7 concerns the permitted tonnage for human freighters in the designated lanes. She said, her voice calm and clear. The limit is set at 500,000 galactic mass units. Vale gave a gentle bob of his head, a sign of agreement. "A sufficient limit for your current largest." "What do you call them? Bull callers?" "Yes," June said. "It is sufficient for our current models." He did not blink. He had been briefed extensively on the Mach-Poes specifications. 500,000 mass units was less than 1% of its displacement. This fact was not relevant to the current discussion, but the talks proceeded smoothly. Vale was courteous, his offers firm but not unkind. He saw humanity as a young species to be shepherded, a curious addition to the galactic tapestry. He explained the cultural benefits: access to Elshin music, Cretian epic poetry, the serene meditation techniques of the aquatic Pell. He spoke of unity and the end of existential fear. "The dark between stars holds no terror when you sail it in company," he chimed poetically. Ariam listened, and in her mind, she compared this to the briefings from Deep Space Command. She remembered the cold, technical reports from the first Titan-class voyages. The audio logs spoke not of terror, but of a profound, watchful silence. The ships were built not for sailing in company, but for plunging into the absolute, lightless voids between galactic clusters, for centuries at a time, completely alone. Their entire design philosophy was a silent rebuttal to everything Vale represented. After the final terms were agreed upon in principle, Vale rose. "A ceremony will be held tomorrow to formalize the agreement. But for now, as a gesture of goodwill, we have approved the transit of a scheduled human supply convoy through Nexus Point Sigma near the station. It will be a good opportunity for our traffic controllers to familiarize themselves with your vessel signatures." June stood and bowed slightly. "Thank you, Ambassador. That is most gracious." Inside, a small, quiet part of him tightened. This was the moment. It had been planned for, calculated down to the second dot as they left the chamber. Ariam fell into step beside him. The station corridors were wide, filled with a soft hum and the faint floral scent preferred by the Elshin. Different species moved past them, giving the humans polite but brief glances. Their fleet formations, Ariam murmured, her voice so low only June could hear it. They are purely reactive. They assume any threat can be outmaneuvered or precisely disabled. They have no concept of a sheer, immovable object. June kept his eyes forward. The Mokpo is not an object of war, Kim. It is a deep-range engineering platform. Remember the briefing. Ariam allowed the ghost of a smile to touch her lips. Of course, Ambassador. A platform. For engineering. She had seen the schematics. She knew what engineering meant on that scale. It meant moving asteroids, stabilizing failing stars, building structures that could last for millennia. It was a practicality so vast, it became a weapon simply by existing. They reached their assigned quarters. The rooms were comfortable, designed to accommodate a variety of physiologies. The window showed a stunning view of the gas giant Siren orbited. Its bands of orange and cream, slowly churning. June stood by the window. "He thinks he is giving a child a safe lane to ride a bicycle," he said. More to himself than to Ariam. "He does not know we have brought a cathedral." Ariam joined him, looking out not at the planet, but at the blackness beyond. "They will see it tomorrow." "What is our projected outcome?" "Compliance," June said simply. "Not through threat, but through recalibration. They will look at the bicycle lane and realize it is built on sand and that the tide is coming in. They will rebuild the lane themselves, stronger, and will politely ask the cathedral to please stay in the deep water where it belongs." A soft chime echoed in the room. An update on the station's official feed. The human convoy had been cleared. The Mokpo was entering the Nexus Point in 12 hours. June turned from the view. "Get some rest, Kim. Tomorrow, the galaxy learns a new word." "What word is that, sir?" "Mass," said Li Jun. "Simple, undeniable mass." Kim Ariam nodded, her mind already racing ahead to the silent, terrifying geometry that was about to tear its way into this harmonious, beautiful, and fragile world. She felt no pride, no malice, only the cold certainty of a physicist watching an equation resolve. The variables were set. The result was now inevitable. The next day, the atmosphere on Siren Station was one of quiet routine. The Concordance officials moved through their tasks with smooth efficiency. Ambassador Vale felt a sense of serene accomplishment. The human treaty was a small matter, but it was another step towards perfect galactic harmony. The integration of a new species was always a delicate process, but these humans were proving to be admirably compliant. They asked few challenging questions. They accepted guidance. In the main traffic control hub, a wide circular room bathed in soft blue light. The controllers monitored the flow of ships. It was a calm shift. A Pell with shimmering silver skin manipulated holographic runes with webbed fingers, directing a freighter from the Cridian homeworld. An Elshin-like Veil, but with darker plumage, tracked a series of fast courier vessels. The human convoy was a minor note on the board, listed as Human Supply Group Sigma-7. Its transit to Nexus Point Sigma, a stable gravitational warp lane, a short distance from the station, was a simple procedural event. Signal from Sigma-7, the Pell controller chimed, its voice like water over stones. They are initiating final approach for Nexus transit. Estimated emergence in our local space in 3 minutes. Acknowledge, said the senior controller, a veteran Credian named Gorv. His reptilian snout twitched. Assign them to holding vector Zeta-9. Clear the standard safety perimeter. On the observation deck, Lee Jun and Kim Ariam stood with Vale. It was an informal gathering. A few other Concordance diplomats had come, more out of polite curiosity than genuine interest. They looked out at the stars, near the marked location of Nexus Point Sigma. It was currently just an empty patch of black. Your convoy will be our first sustained look at human engineering. Vale said pleasantly to June, a moment of small history. We appreciate you allowing it, June replied. His face was calm, but his hands were deep in the pockets of his formal jacket. Ariam stood slightly behind him, her posture perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the same point in space dot in the traffic hub. The Pell controller's posture suddenly stiffened. The runes before it flickered from blue to a pulsing, urgent amber. Controller Gorv, I am reading an anomalous energy buildup at Nexus Point Sigma. It is far beyond the predicted signature for human freight models. Gorv moved swiftly to the station. Scan interference? A nearby stellar event? Negative. The source is the Nexus Point itself. The energy curve is exponential. It is not a ship exiting a warp. It is. It is stressing the fabric of the lane. The Pell's voice had lost its watery calm. It now held a sharp, unfamiliar note of alarm. On the observation deck, a soft chime sounded. Vale tilted his head, accessing a data feed through his neural link. His large eyes blinked slowly, then froze. The gentle glow of his feathers seemed to dim. There is. A reading, he said, the chime of his voice slightly distorted. Then, the stars near Nexus Point Sigma warped. It was not a clean, shimmering tier of normal warp emergence. Space itself seemed to bulge, to strain, like a sheet of metal being pressed from the other side by something too large to fit. A violent corona of distorted light, purple and sickly green, crackled around the edges of the bulge. The station's gentle ambient lights flickered. A low, sub-audible groan vibrated through the deck plates, felt in the bones more than heard. What is that? Whispered one of the diplomats, a mammalian species with large ears. The bulge tore open. Not a gateway, but a ragged wound in reality. From it, a shape began to push through. First came a prow, a cliff of dark, non-reflective alloy, scarred and pitted with micrometeorite impacts that no decorative finish would ever cover. It kept coming. There was no elegant curve, no sleek streamlining. It was a brutal, angular slab, a mountain range carved into the vague shape of a ship. Weapon ports, thousands of them, lay dormant and sealed like closed eyes along its flanks. Sensor arrays, each the size of a city block, swept slowly, passively, it kept coming. And coming. The station was utterly silent. The chatter in the traffic hub had died. Every being watched their screens or the viewport frozen. The human vessel, it could be nothing else, was still only partially emerged from the Nexus, and already it dwarfed the largest Concordance dreadnought ever built. It blotted out the stars behind it, After what felt like an eternity, it was fully present. The nexus point snapped shut behind it with a final thunderous clap of collapsing energy that registered on every station sensor. The ship, the Mokpo, hung in the void. It did not move. It did not hail them. It simply was. Its scale was an offense to reason. Siren Station, a marvel of galactic cooperation, looked like a child's toy next to it. The standard safety perimeter assigned to it was laughable. The ship's own bulk occupied most of it. On the observation deck, Vale was trembling. His feathers were pressed flat against his body in a primal sign of terror. He could not form words. He simply stared at the monstrous geometry, now dominating his view. Li Jun let the silence hang for 3 more heartbeats. Then he cleared his throat softly. "Ah," he said, his voice calm and mild in the cathedral-like quiet. "It appears our escort has arrived a little early. My apologies for the disruption." Vale slowly turned his head to look at June. The human ambassador's face was politely apologetic. "That is your supply convoy?" Vale's chime was a broken whisper. "The Mokpo is one of our newer deep-range engineering platforms," June explained, as if describing a slightly oversized cargo hauler. "It was in the vicinity, so Command assigned it to escort our diplomatic shuttle back to human space after these talks. For safety. The dark can be unpredictable." Ariam watched Vale's reaction, then let her gaze drift back to the Titan. She saw what the Concordans saw, the terrifying scale. But she also saw what they would soon start to see, the sheer, brutal purpose in every line. This was not a ship built for war, not primarily. It was a ship built to endure, to go where nothing else could go, and to stay there, forever if needed. In the traffic hub, Controller Gorv found his voice. It was a harsh, scraping sound. "Scan it," he ordered the Pell, who was now gripping its console for stability. The Pell worked, its fingers moving shakily. "Scanning. Partial data only. Its hull is reflecting almost all active scans. Passive readings only. Mass. The reading is unstable. It is. Approximating a small moon's mass. Power signature. Core output is. I have no scale for this. It is comparable to a young stellar body. Life signs. The interior readings are chaotic. There are large internal atmospheric zones, artificial gravity wells. It is not a ship. It is a mobile world fragment." Gorv stared at the data, his tactical mind, trained for fleet engagements and pirate skirmishes, simply breaking. There was no doctrine for this. No protocol. You could not flank it. You could not outrun it. Bombarding it would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain. On the observation deck, June turned to Vale, who was still catatonic. "I should probably contact the Mokpo and inform them of their assigned holding vector. Would you like me to do that, Ambassador Vale?" Vale did not answer. He was still looking at the ship, the human Titan-class vessel, the Mokpo. He was trying and failing to fit it into his universe. He was realizing, with a cold, dawning horror that started in his soul and spread outwards, that the universe was far, far bigger and darker than the Concordants had ever told him. And humanity did not sail in it. They walled it off. The silence on Siren Station stretched from moments into minutes. It was a deep, humming quiet, broken only by the faint, shuddering breaths of the Concordance officials and the ever-present, now seemingly frail, hum of the station's systems. The Mokpo dominated the main viewport, a dark monument that had simply appeared and now claimed a piece of the universe as its own. Ambassador Vale finally moved. It was a small, jerky motion, his hand rising to adjust a feather on his chest that was not out of place. His translator emitted a soft, broken chime. An engineering platform. He did not look at Li Jun. He stared only at the ship. A necessity for our deeper explorations, June said, his voice still that model of calm reason. The volumes of space between galactic arms are empty, truly empty. A standard vessel cannot carry enough material for self-sustenance or repair on century-long voyages. The Titan class was the logical solution. Vale's large eyes finally swiveled to June. The serene mentoring diplomat was gone. In his place was a being confronting a fundamental error in his understanding of reality. You built that to be alone? Before June could answer, a new presence entered the observation deck. It was Korath, the chief military attaché for the Concordance delegation. A Credian, his scales were a dark, burnished bronze, and he moved with the tense, efficient grace of a career soldier. Unlike Vale's poetic horror, Korath's expression was one of pure tactical shock. He ignored diplomatic protocol and went straight to the viewport. "I have never seen anything like it," Korath hissed, his own translator rendering his words in a low, gravelly tone. "Its profile is all wrong. No graceful lines. No vulnerable engine nacelles. It is a brick. A continent." June gave a slight, polite nod to the warrior. "Attach Korath. This is an unexpected meeting. Your ship has just rewritten every tactical manual in the Concordance." "Ambassador," Korath stated flatly, still not looking away. "My office is requesting a scan. A full deep scan for safety verification." Kim Ariam, standing silently, knew this was the critical moment. A refusal would seem hostile, guilty. An agreement would reveal everything. She glanced at June, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Of course," June said. "We have nothing to hide. The Motpo is a tool of construction and research. However, its systems are robust. Active scanning might be interpreted as a threat by its autonomous defense protocols. We can provide a guided remote tour. Passive data only." Korath's snout twitched. It was a compromise, but he was in no position to demand more. "Agreed." The data feed was patched into the station's main strategic analysis suite. Korath, Vale, June, and Ariam moved to the secure room. Other senior military and scientific staff joined, their faces masks of varying degrees of disbelief and dread. A holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room. A wireframe model of the Motpo, built from the passive radiation it emitted and the limited, non-invasive sensor pings it allowed. A Concordance engineer, a slender being with crystalline skin, began the analysis, its voice trembling. Starting with the hull. Composition is a composite. Layers of bonded neutronium foam, diamondoid lattice, and a top layer of what appears to be a self-healing metamaterial. The scarring on the surface indicates it has weathered particle storms of intensity. Well, it has weathered events that would vaporize our strongest dreadnought. The hull is not meant to deflect or evade fire. It is meant to absorb it and then repair itself. Korath leaned forward, his claws tapping on the table. "No shields?" "The power signature suggests it could generate a deflector barrier of immense strength," the crystal engineer said. "But the design philosophy, it seems to consider shields a wasteful redundancy when your armor is already a planetary crust." The analysis moved to the power core. The holographic schematic zoomed in on the center of the ship. Readings spiraled incomprehensibly large. The core is not a singularity drive or a quantum vacuum reactor. Our models suggest it is a contained stellar forge, a miniature artificial sun. The energy output is not just for propulsion. It powers internal gravity, atmosphere processing, vast hydroponic sectors, and industrial-scale fabrication bays. This ship does not just carry spare parts. It carries mines and factories. It can make its own spare parts. From asteroids. From cosmic dust. Vale made a small, pained sound. The Concordance's harmony was based on delicate supply chains, on interdependence. This vessel was the antithesis of that. It was utter, terrifying independence. Now, the weapon systems, Koreth said, his voice tight. Identifying what we believe are primary weapon arrays, the engineer continued, highlighting sections of the hull. These are not laser emplacements. They are gravitational shear projectors. They do not burn or cut. They twist local space-time, tearing targets apart at a fundamental level. And here, mass driver batteries. The projectiles are not explosive shells. They are simply chunks of dense material, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy released on impact would be planet cracking. The room was deathly silent. These were not weapons for ship-to-ship combat. They were tools for planetary engineering, or for destroying things as large as planets. The most disturbing aspect, the crystal engineer said, its voice dropping to a whisper, is the complete lack of non-essential systems. There is no art, no grand viewing galleries, no decorative architecture. Every corridor, every conduit, every cubic meter of space is dedicated to pure, brutal function. This vessel was designed by minds that see the universe as a hostile, resource-scarce void. Its purpose is singular, to ensure the survival of its crew in that void, indefinitely, against any conceivable threat. And in doing so, it becomes a threat to everything else simply by existing. Koreth sank back into his chair. His tactical mind, so sharp and confident hours before, was empty. Every rule was broken. You fight a war by cutting supply lines, by striking at vulnerable points. This ship had no supply lines. Its vulnerable point, if it had one, was buried under kilometers of armor and a contained star. You could throw the entire Concordance fleet at it, and it would simply sit there, weathering the storm, while its factories built more ammunition. Lee June broke the silence. As I said, attach Koreth, a deep-range engineering platform. The gravitational shears are for breaking up asteroid fields for raw material. The mass drivers can alter the trajectory of small celestial bodies. The power core is for sustained operations far from any star. It is a tool. Korath looked at June, and for the first time, the human saw true fear in the warrior's eyes. It was not fear of the ship's guns. It was fear of the mindset that built it. A tool, Korath repeated, his voice hollow. You built a tool that can shatter moons, and you call it a platform. June met his gaze, his own eyes calm and unreadable. The dark is very deep, Attach, and very old. When you work in it, you need good tools. Kim Ariam watched the Concordance officials. She saw the moment the understanding settled upon them. The horror was not just the Mokpo. The horror was the why. Humanity had not looked into the star-filled galaxy and seen beauty and company. They had looked into the infinite black and seen a cold, hungry nothing. And their response was not to build faster ships to escape it, or prettier ships to distract from it. Their response was to build a wall with engines, a wall that said, "You shall not pass," to the void itself. And if they could build a wall against the void, what, in all the galaxy, could ever hope to move them? The image of the Mokpo did not stay confined to Siren Station. It could not. In a galaxy bound by instantaneous data streams, the visual and sensor logs were a psychic shockwave. They bled from secure military channels into public networks, a leak born from sheer, stunned disbelief. The sight spread, and with it, a silence that was not peaceful, but heavy and full of dread. Aboard the station, Ambassador Vale retreated to his private chambers. The elegant room, with its soft flowing water sculptures and gentle light, felt like a cruel joke. He stood before a screen, watching the public feeds from across the concordance. He saw his own people, the Elshin. They were a species for whom beauty was a spiritual necessity. Their cities were works of art, their music a complex mathematical harmony. They watched the image of the human ship, and Vale saw their collective spirit fracture. On the feed, an Elshin philosopher, her feathers dull with distress, spoke to a gathering. "Look at it," she chimed, her voice mournful. "It is a monument to loneliness. There is no grace, no song in its form. It speaks only of a universe that is cold, empty, and silent. To build such a thing is to declare that companionship, that beauty, are irrelevant. It is an act of profound despair." Across Elshin worlds, artistic output plummeted. A species-wide melancholy settled in. They had believed the galaxy was a place of growing connection. The Titan proved them wrong. The universe, it whispered, was a void, and humanity had simply accepted it. Vale switched the feed. Now he saw the Cretian reaction. The warrior species prized honor, strength, and the glory of single combat. Their wars were brutal but personal, governed by rituals and codes. A Cretian warlord, his scales etched with battle marks, was being interviewed. His snarl was translated, but the fury and confusion were clear. "Where is the honor?" He roared. That thing is not a weapon of war. It is a machine of annihilation. There is no pilot to challenge, no bridge to storm. You cannot fight a mountain. This is not battle. This is geology." Vale understood. The Cretian identity was built on the concept of the worthy opponent. The Mokpo made a mockery of it. It was an impersonal, absolute force. It rendered their entire history of glorious combat obsolete, turning it into the irrelevant scuffling of insects that other species processed the terror through their own lenses. The aquatic Pell, who lived in vast, collaborative hive cities, saw the Titan as the ultimate expression of isolation, a horror beyond comprehension. The merchant Glydians began frantic calculations, realizing that one such ship could monopolize the resources of a star system, collapsing economies. Strategists deleted entire libraries of tactical simulations. They were all useless now. The shock was not merely political or military. It was existential. The Concordance had sold a story of safe, managed growth under their benevolent guidance. The human Titan was a spoiler in that story. It said, "*The universe is not safe. It is not manageable. And we are the ones who built for that truth." Vale could take it no longer. He left his chambers and went to find Li Jun. He found the human ambassador in a quiet station garden, a place of curated alien flora. Jun was simply standing, looking at a plant with spiraling blue leaves. He did not seem surprised to see Vale. "Ambassador," Jun said, nodding. Vale dispensed with all formality. His chimes were sharp, strained. "Why? I must understand. You speak of engineering, of the dark? What dark?" "We have charted the galaxy. We have found companionship in 1,000 forms. The darkness is just space. It is not an enemy." June turned to face him. His expression was not unkind, but it was grave. "You have charted this galaxy, Ambassador Vale, the one with stars in it. You live in the lighted places. You have built your harmony where the light touches." He paused, choosing his words with the care of a man laying down a heavy object. "My species looked up from a single, isolated world. We saw the black, and we knew it was the dominant fact of existence. Not the pretty little lights. The endless, empty, cold black between them. We did not know if we were alone. We had to assume we were. And we had to assume that anything that might be out there in that black had survived the same relentless truth." "What truth?" Vale asked, his voice a whisper. "That the universe is indifferent," June said simply. "It does not hate you. It does not love you. It will simply let you die if you are not prepared. Your concordance built ships to travel between points of light, to visit neighbors. We built the Titan class to live in the indifference, to withstand it forever if necessary. Not to fight monsters, Vale, to be so resilient that the concept of a monster becomes meaningless. Vale felt his understanding of the human shift, and the new shape was far more terrifying than the old. They were not warlike. They were not ambitious in a galactic sense. They were prepared for the worst possible scenario, imaginable or not. Their ship was not a statement of power. It was a statement of paranoia on a species-wide, civilization-defining scale. So it is a wall, Vale said, repeating the thought that had haunted him. A bastion, June corrected softly. To keep the dark out. Not the dark of space. The dark of absolute solitude. The dark of 1 billion years of silence. We built it so our people could go into that silence and not be afraid. So they could carry a piece of home with them, a piece so strong it could never be taken away. The explanation was worse than any declaration of war. War had rules, endpoints, negotiations. This was a declaration of a permanent state of mind. Humanity would always see the void first, and the star second. They would always build for the void. Vale thought of the Concordance's elegant ships, their cultural exchanges, their peaceful diplomacy. It all seemed so fragile, like delicate glass ornaments in a room where a steel vault had just been rolled in. The ornaments were beautiful, but their purpose was trivial next to the vault's sheer, grim function. You have shown us, Vale said. The melody gone from his voice, leaving only a hollow tone, that our peace was built on a foundation we did not fully understand. We thought the foundation was mutual benefit and shared beauty. You have shown us that the real foundation is that nothing truly terrible has yet come out of the dark. He looked at the image of the Mokpo, still hanging in the station's main feed on a distant screen. And you assume that something will. June followed his gaze. We assume nothing, Ambassador. We are simply ready. There is a difference. But Vale knew in that moment that for the rest of the galaxy there was no difference at all. The mere fact of humanity's readiness had broken something precious. It had shown them the abyss they all lived over, an abyss they had pretended was not there. And once seen, it could never be unseen. The galaxy had lost its innocence. Not to a war, but to a simple, crushing look at the one being who had never believed in innocence at all. 5 standard cycles later, the chamber was different. It was on a different station, one orbiting a calm blue world in the core systems. The room was plainer, more functional. The elegant water sculptures and soft glow of Siren Station were absent. Here, the light was clear and bright, leaving no room for shadow or gentle interpretation. Senior diplomat Kim Ariam sat on one side of a broad, plain table. Her posture was perfect, her hands resting on the surface. She wore a simple, dark suit. Across from her sat the new Concordance liaison, an Elshin named Tanal. Tanal's feathers were neat, but there was a constant, faint tremble in his hands, a tremor he could not fully control. His eyes, while trying to maintain focus on Ariam, kept darting to the large, empty viewport behind her, as if expecting something to appear. The document between them was not called an integration treaty. It was labeled Mutual Security and Spatial Awareness Accord. The language was precise, careful, and utterly unlike the flowing, philosophical texts of the old Concordance. It was a document written by beings who had stared into an abyss and were now meticulously drawing a line on the ground in front of it. Article 14, Ariam said, her voice calm and clear in the quiet room. It confirms the human designation of the Titan-class vessels as deep-range autonomous habitats. It requests, for the psychological well-being of Concordance citizenry, that these habitats avoid visual proximity to populated worlds or major orbital hubs. A recommended minimum distance is specified in the annex. Tunnel gave a quick, jerky nod. Yes, that is acceptable. A polite request. For well-being. His chime was soft, strained. The article was not a demand. It could not be. It was a plea, dressed in legal terms. Please, it said, keep your nightmares away from our dreams. Ariam made a small mark on her data slate. Article 22. The Concordance grants humanity stewardship over the Lignus Cloud and the surrounding 5 systems, for the purposes of long-term resource development and deep-range exploration. This was the heart of the deal. The Lignus Cloud was a vast, mineral-rich nebula on the far galactic rim, sparsely populated and of little strategic value to the Concordance. In the old days, they would have offered a trading outpost. Now, they were giving away entire systems. Not because they were generous, but because they wanted a clear, defined space where humanity could be. Somewhere far away, the Concordance recognizes humanity's unique logistical needs, Tanal said, reciting the line as if he had practiced it 1,000 times. The Lignus sector is suited to supporting your architectural paradigms. Architectural paradigms. Ariam did not smile. She remembered Captain Park De-Hyan's last report from the Mokpo. They were on the rim, beyond the cloud, mapping the true emptiness. The report was technical dry. It mentioned gravitational anomalies and mineral compositions. It did not mention fear. It did not mention loneliness. It simply was. The turns are satisfactory, Ariam said. She reached for the formal acceptance seal, a small electronic device. As she picked it up, her stylus tapped lightly against its metal side. Tap. Tunnel flinched. It was a small, involuntary spasm. His whole body tightened for a split second, his feathers pressing flat. He stared at the stylus as if it were the trigger for a planet cracker. Then, shamefaced, he tried to relax, smoothing his plumage. He would not meet her eyes. Ariam understood. It was not the sound. It was the echo of a reality that had broken over them 5 cycles ago. The echo of a hull so large it owned space itself. To Taunal, and to the galaxy he represented, any sharp, unexpected noise from a human was now a potential precursor to something unthinkable. They had been conditioned. She completed the seal. A soft tone sounded in the room, confirming the accord was ratified. The Lignus Cloud was now, officially, human space. The Titan-class ships had a home that was not among the stars of the Concordance. The agreement is concluded. Liaison Tanal, Ariam said, standing. Humanity looks forward to a peaceful and respectful coexistence. Tanal stood as well, his movements still stiff. Coexistence, yes. The word seemed to taste strange in his mouth. It was not the old word, harmony. Coexistence was what you had with a powerful, unpredictable force of nature. You did not harmonize with the storm. You observed it from a distance, and you were grateful when it passed you by. After he left, Ariam remained in the room for a moment. She looked out the viewport at the tranquil blue planet below. It was a beautiful world. It looked fragile. She thought of Li Jun, who had retired after the Siren incident. He had said his job was done. The lesson had been delivered. She thought of the Mokpo, out in the deep black. It was not a weapon. It was a testament. A testament to a species that had spent its childhood in the dark, on a single world, listening to the silence and deciding to build their own light, their own warmth, their own unbreakable walls. They had not done it to intimidate the galaxy. They had done it because it was the only way they knew to survive their own imagination. But the galaxy had seen it. And in seeing it, they had seen the reflection of their own deepest, most carefully buried fear, that the universe was, at its heart, a cold and empty place. Humanity had simply been the first to stop pretending otherwise. They had built for the emptiness, and in doing so, they had made the beautiful, interconnected galaxy of the Concordance look like a delicate fantasy. Ariam gathered her things. The accord was a success. It guaranteed peace. It granted humanity room to grow. It was a better deal than any integration treaty. But as she walked out, she heard the quiet of the station. It was not a peaceful quiet. It was the quiet of a library, of a museum. It was the quiet of a civilization that was now, and would forever be, looking over its shoulder, watching the dark between the stars, waiting to see if another shadow would move. The psychic wound of the Titan was permanent. The galaxy's confidence, its innocent belief in its own secure and manageable place in the cosmos, had not healed. It never would. Humanity had not conquered them. They had simply shown them the void, and in that moment the galaxy had realized it was already living in it.